work in the highest level prison in the state of Alabama. We house all type, from 6 months all the way up to death row. We have them all here.
The violence here, I don't really know how to explain it other than this is a breeding ground.
Donaldson's a pretty dangerous place. The chance of somebody being stabbed or killed is pretty much a common occurrence, as it were.
There we were in Alabama, a very strong Christian part of the country, in one of the United States' worst prisons, and we were teaching the teachings of the Buddha.
No one is telling them what to look at or how to change. They're gaining their insights within themselves.
Life without parole doesn't mean that you're to be punished or worked or any of that. It means you're to be warehoused till you die. This is my home, and I'm going to do what I can to help make it the best place it can be. I want a nice place to live, too.
The best way to describe a prison is to think of it as a small city. Your correctional officers are your police force. I'm the mayor. Just like you have people that are of great influence on the street, you have inmates in here of great influence with other inmates. You have organized crime inside of a prison that are controlling illicit activities, from prostituting inmates to drugs to gambling. And that's a constant battle for us to keep under control.
What you got out here is 500 inmates. 4 dormitories this way with 110 per dorm, and B dorm with 116 down here. That's Tower 4. That's the sally port where any vehicles come in and out of the institution. All towers are armed. I have segregation, so I put them under investigation or detention and lock them up. It's basically the premise of it. 6 block front door. We have a lot coming and a lot going. Too many of them do come back. 9 times out of 10, they fall into their old habits when they get back to their hometown, and they run with the same folks that got them in here the first time. I can pretty much tell whether or not they're coming back.
The majority of my time I've been in prison, I've been in segregation. I always looked at the officers like, you know, that they're my enemies. I had this big image of them. You know, I felt like I had to have this image to survive in this environment. All I thought I wanted was just another chance to go back and go to school. Another chance at life. You know, I wouldn't have achieved anything. It would have been like back on the same path again.
My son, Elwood Curry Johnson, he was in his third year at Miles College, 3.0 grade average, playing baseball. The scouts was looking at him for pro. And he had just made a decision to turn his life around. But sometimes your first impression always be your last impression. Even when you try to change, sometimes others do not understand.
June the 2nd, 1991, if my behind been at home, then I wouldn't have to worry about being in prison. I take responsibility for my actions now. I did do that first. I was like, man, these folks throw me in prison like this, huh, for the rest of my life for nothing. Had to be for something else. You did something. Accept what you done and let's move on. Guys had come to one of the spots I had, and it was just like a big shootout.
One was dropped in the middle of the sidewalk. From my understanding, one fell near the building, and one across 3rd Avenue. I haven't been on this street but once since this happened. This will make my second time on this street. And I try not to travel this street. I have no reason to.
What's up, y'all? Did y'all win? Y'all lost by one? What about you, Head? Oh, y'all on the same team this year? Oh, you done moved up to the big dog house.
Oh, it hit me hard to find out Ed went through what he was going through. But he wasn't really one going through anything. It was us. And I didn't realize it. I cry a little bit, but I don't cry much.
See how I got in your head? Go ahead.
Sometimes I just hate that he in there. I wish he can just come home.
As a psychologist at Donaldson, I realized treatment was essential. I started looking around and I came across a prison in India that was using a meditative technique known as Vipassana. Vipassana is an intense program. The inmate has to go through it 24 hours a day, meditating for hours on end for a 10-day period of time. That particular program seemed to have a calming effect on that population. So I was thinking perhaps we could take that program and transplant it into Donaldson and run it as a regular program. When people say, gee, you're the first prison in America to actually do this program, it just sort of is incomprehensible.
I've heard Vipassana, Vipassana. My main supervisor was telling me, he said, Biggie, how you say that word? Is it Vipassana? I said, no, it's Vipassana.
The questions about what the program was were somewhat simple. Is what benefit was it going to have for us? How does anybody do it for 10 days without being able to talk? No telephones, no TV, nothing to read. And that just seemed like an incredible task to overcome. I need to sit the program so I'll have a better idea of what it's about, but I'll be honest with you, it's rather intimidating.
While I was here as a psychologist, we had a House of Healing program which highlighted doing meditation as part of our relaxation techniques. It turned out that the inmates are very receptive to meditative practices. Vipassana really takes it one step further, and that goes to the sensation level, to where it puts you literally in touch with your bodily sensations to realize these sensations are driving your behavior.
My name is Benjamin Bedegwa Iwamba Oriang. Everybody calls me OB. I'm the one who helps facilitate the House of Healing class and almost all the other mental health workshops here.
Generally speaking, these are things which we pick up. You know, these are things which change the culture.
I want to help people. You know, that's one thing I want to do, is to help people.
Different experiences with our families, with our peers, in school.
The work which is done through all these courses, all the classes and whatnot, including the Vipassana class, this is something that should be used for personal development, personal growth. You know, so irrespective of whether someone is free or whether someone is incarcerated, I think such work should be done if one wants to grow personally.
I've been locked up 16 years, 8.5 years on death row in that 5/8 cell. And every morning I'd have to get up and live with the fact that I have isolated myself from everybody that I loved, isolated everybody I loved from me, and pretty much wrecked their lives. I had small children. They had to grow up in this community where their father has done this horrific act. You know, they had to go to school with kids that your father is a murderer. I thought I had a real good life going, and I blew it.
My mother took us out in the country to this old deserted farmhouse. She didn't know what to do. She didn't think she could raise us. She got us out of the car, set us on the front steps, and she told me, "I want you all to be good. I love you all, and I'll be back in a little while." She hugged me, hugged Danny, got in the car and left. She left us out there to die. She didn't want to live herself, is what she told me later. I didn't hear from her again until I got to death row.
But I was so drunk, by the time that they had started stabbing the guy, I turned into a coward. I didn't try and stop them. I was scared. I was scared they were going to leave me there like they did him. And I didn't do anything. And my case is not a killing. It's not just a murder. It's rated as capital murder, murder robbery, but that's not what it was either. My case was a slaughter. The man was stabbed 3 times in the face, 59 times in the back, and his throat was cut 16 times, almost decapitated. I'd just as soon have been killed like that man was and left there with him. Then the people that really matter to me wouldn't have been through what they've been through.
I was very nervous to go to a maximum security prison. The atmosphere was so heavy and oppressive. I felt I was going into like the prison in Shawshank Redemption.
What happens if you bring these teachers in that have no background in corrections? How is that going to work, knowing that you've turned this part of the prison over to people just coming in off the street?
Home sweet home.
Well, when Vipassana first approached, they came up with a lot of issues such as wanting to live inside the prison with the inmates, which I found at first to be just absolutely nonsense, to tell you the truth.
We had to get ourselves established in our living quarters. There was an open toilet and a sink, so we actually had no privacy. We did actually hang up a curtain for as much privacy as we could get. And so to say the least, it was very rudimentary. That place became our haven. We found ourselves really quite fascinated with the fact that here we were in one of the United States' worst prisons, and these very lofty teachings of the Buddha were being taught in this institution. I mean, it was just mind-boggling that we were there.
Chris, what do you think? Souvenir?
I think we had good reason to be scared, but I had a lot of confidence in the authorities and the warden. I felt very sort of protected. Maybe naively so, but I did.
The first thing I want to say is a little bit about what Vipassana is. For the 10 days that you're going to be taking the course, you're going to be observing a strict moral code of conduct. We go through a much more involved orientation process for the inmates so that we acclimate them to the course and allow them to let their decision to take the course sink in such a way that if they feel that this is not the time for them to sit a course, they can comfortably decide not to before the course actually begins. Just to summarize, your primary job during the 10 days is going to be to follow the schedule of meditation, the rest periods, the meal times, and the breaks. It's a very regimented day. It's in many ways stricter than your normal prison daily schedule. How many of you consider yourselves to be religious? Quite a few of you. Or spiritual, religious, however you want to say it.
It's not that it's teaching the religion, it's teaching a meditation practice that was born there. I don't think that will be a problem once that's understood. Now, if you came in and tried to teach against Christianity and to teach Buddhism, it would become a real problem here. As a matter of fact, I would have some difficulty with that.
This West Gym will be locked down. The inmates will not be able to go out, and inmates from the outside will not be able to come in. This is very much a monastic setting, in a sense, or a prison within a prison.
Obi was very instrumental in setting up the courses.
Anyway, that'll do. If we put the duct tape, if we duct tape it all up, it should be fine.
We got matching tape now.
Wow.
That's great.
We've got some gray one too, which we could use for the edge of the white.
He told me that he had started meditating, and so I asked him, "You've started meditating? What's going on?" And I've always been apprehensive about these things. He explained to me that it is to relax you and enable you to focus on controlling your emotions. He went through a whole length of things, but I was just concerned about his well-being.
What I noticed about OB is that he seemed to be more calm, more at peace with himself. He seemed to have that sense of purpose. It's like stepping into the abyss, you know, to go to Vipassana. Because when you're in here, you're not just anybody, you're already someone that's harmed humanity. You've already done something, so you wonder, what is it I haven't dealt with? There may be things back there that I may uncover that I've never even glimpsed at. This woman came out from the back. I asked for her money. I told her to lay down in the floor, and that didn't seem to satisfy me. So I told her to get up. When she walked by me, I stabbed her to death many, many times. You really don't feel. You've got this place where it's like things are not real. And until you get stopped by life itself, where you have to stop and take note of what you've done, what's going on with you, then you just continue.
This is actually the last orientation that we'll have. And the idea is for you to come in here, get used to the environment that you're going to be in, have you sit on the cushions, get a sense of what that's going to feel like. Each time we start a group sitting, we'll start off with chanting. The chanting is to help create and to preserve a good environment for you to work in. So I'm going to play you the beginning of the chanting, and then I'll play the end of it.
Being someone as talkative as much as I am, shutting up for 10 days is just critical mass. You know, that's serious. That's almost to drive you into hysteria by itself. What's 10 hours going to look like? You know, what's it going to do to your back? It don't matter how much yoga I've done or other things, I still know that my legs, the circulation cuts off. I imagine it's kind of like going in the Army, you know, when you get through a boot camp. One way or the other that you feel about it. Either it was okay and you realized what the purpose is for, or you didn't, and you had the extreme other.
So I wish you all the success these 10 days. It won't always be easy, but remember, if you keep persisting, keep trying, you will be successful. So
I wrestled with myself for a long time. So I said, I'm decided to take this. I'm gonna see what's going on. That's part of me. Let me know, Ed, you ready, man. You ready. You know, you ready to go and deal with life. Some people scared to deal with life, and I was one of those persons scared to deal with life. got to get it going on myself.
All Vipassana inmates, you need to get your stuff, gentlemen. Get your stuff. All of them coming? All this stuff on there? All right.
I hear this sound I'm not used to, and it means it's time to get up. I would come to hate that sound.
Probably the most challenging discipline that we have is one of noble silence. So for 9 days, the students cannot actually talk with each other.
It was so quiet, you know. I hadn't been in anything that quiet since kindergarten. But it was okay. It's like they're used to action. They're used to action at all times. They're not used to clearing their minds and, you know, meditating and listening to other people, you know, tell them how to meditate, how to express themselves. They're not used to that.
First 3 days was the rough part. At this point in time, you don't have to sit hours and hours for the first day. I'm like, okay, I can do this. I can do this. And I'm telling myself I can do this.
Vipassana means literally to see things as they are. To see the reality deep inside of yourself as it really is. And that oftentimes is not a very pleasant experience initially.
I wake up exhausted. I am concerned about making this day. The very hour that we were to ask the teacher to teach us Vipassana, a thunderstorm hits for the whole duration of the session.
I think I was going around too serious. I went in there, and I said, yeah, I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna do it. Nothing's gonna get in the way, and then at the turns out so many things got in the way, and you know, then I found myself getting angry at the things which were getting in the way, you know, and that was a big storm there.
Every student will face what we call a storm, where they will have a deep sense of fear, anger, depression begin to come to the surface level of the mind, and they have to face that. That is the technique of Vipassana, is to work at that depth where all that stuff comes up.
I knew that I had to kind of let things go. And I realized that I was holding on to things too strongly. And that became very funny. You know, I started laughing about the way I was reacting to everything. I started laughing because I was angry. And in the midst of the laughter, it changed to tears. I was like, whoa, man, the big image, you know, you're not supposed to cry. What if somebody sees you crying? It turned out that it was okay, actually. You know, in the end, everything seemed okay. It was okay to cry. And I just didn't care anymore. And I just let the tears roll, and I cried. I don't know what I was crying about, but it felt good to cry. You know, it had been quite some time.
I had a friend, his mother had a lot of land out in the countryside and the outskirts of Montgomery. We used to go out there and target practice and stuff like that. Then I used to ride around with the gun all the time, in the car with me, you know. I remember when it first happened, I wept over it. It's very difficult to conceive of sitting in a car and driving down a highway and just suddenly being shot randomly.
One person got killed, one person got seriously injured, and, you know, they were the subject of a lot of publicity and whatnot around here in the state of Alabama.
To this day, Ben says that he wasn't the person who pulled the trigger. But I know that these were his friends, and if you're in company that does things like that, all of you are responsible for it.
I was a stupid kid. You know, 20 might not seem like a kid to many people, but that's 10 years ago for me. And when I look back, you know, I see that I was a kid. I wanted to fit in, you know. I wanted to fit in I wanted to be looked up to by people, and, you know, I wanted to be accepted in this society here. And, you know, many times that led me into a lot of trouble. I have changed drastically. I think without that personal work, I might have been somebody crazy like the person who was described in the newspapers and whatnot when I got arrested. A ruthless, mindless animal from Africa. Yeah.
We can't really expect the men to do anything. Our job is, you know, just to give. The results really are up to the men.
It was horrible. It was probably the worst experience I've ever been through. I spent 8.5 years on death row, and this was harder. All the stuff that's buried down deep, they come up gradually. And most of them are small things, and you can deal with them, you recognize them, you look at it, and you move on. But I never felt any like that 5th day. It was hard to keep composure, stay on the mat. I wanted to jump and run bad. I've always justified some of my behavior during that crime, and on day 5, I just couldn't get away from myself. I had to actually see it. Things don't just happen, and your behavior causes the actions that you get into, so I am guilty. I'm guilty of the crime, whether I hit the man, whether I stabbed the man, whether I cut the man, which I didn't do any of those, but I'm just as guilty as the ones that did. It hit places in me that I didn't even know was there anymore. Places like your first child, when he gets old enough to talk and he looks you straight in the eye and he tells you, "I love you, Daddy." And you know for the first time he understands what he's saying and he means it. Those kind of places in you. And after 16 years of being locked up in here, I wasn't sure there were any places like that in me anymore.
The in-breath and the out-breath.
That's why they give a 10-day course instead of you come in and sit for 4 to 6 hours a day and go home. Because no, they want you there long enough that you actually deal with your stuff.
Letting the thoughts go on the awareness of the breath.
I believe that Grady Bankett is someone who is not going to be a threat to society his entire life, who doesn't have to be incarcerated or imprisoned his entire life to be appropriately punished for the crime he committed. I tend to disfavor these sentences that have hopelessness as a framework. But I guess we start with the premise that where there's life, there is hope. And if we can get to that point, there'll be something we can do about that will expose more of this person's humanity in a way that the rest of society says, oh, you're right, that's a human being. We shouldn't just give up on them.
I thought my biggest fear was growing old and dying in prison. In truth, my biggest fear was growing old and not knowing myself.
That day that I was sitting and straight meditating. I don't want to look at nothing. I'm just straight meditating. Even at the time we had a break, I'm going to sit on my bed. I don't want to do nothing but meditate. I dreamed about my daughter the third night I was in Vipassana. And I still want to just block that out in my life. You know, I don't want to deal with this. If my daughter dead, this is my baby girl. You know, I was like, I'm gonna put this out. My baby in the case, so I'm gonna put this out, lock this away. I'm not gonna deal with this here. When I told the teacher about it, he was like, that's good, Edward. You're dealing with it.
Whatever sensations you experience on the way.
He was the head of a gang within the facility and was quite feared and respected in that way. He came to me and he had so much pain in his face. He says, I don't know if I can do this. I'm a really angry man.
And it has a little apparatus on the playground, like a bridge. And a girlfriend of hers was playing on the bridge, and she knocked Ebony out. She hit her head. And so once she hit her head and she went into hospital, I think she stayed in a couple of days before she passed. So she died from that leg from falling off.
She was standing in front of me with a white dress on. She laid in my arm and said, Dad, it's all right. I accept the fact she's in a whole nother place, but she'll always be with me. She'll always be with me. And that was a lot of stress lifted above me with that.
All of that pain in his face was gone. And it was just clear. His eyes were brighter. And the whole countenance of his face was happier. And he was lighter.
I didn't believe this method was gonna work, though. To be honest with you, at first, I was like, man, this ain't finna work. Ain't nothing finna work forever. This is it. I didn't believe it was gonna work, but it worked. It's worked. It really did.
The final day, after our group sitting and instructions, we break noble silence. I am proud of our group. I am so proud to call them my Dhamma Brothers.
I made it.
I told you would. You enjoy it?
I think I got it. I know. I can stand these up.
Once they graduate, they not only graduate with skills and techniques and values, but they also graduate with a sense of accomplishment.
We had a great group.
Great group.
Yeah.
For a lot of the inmates, that's something that they're feeling for the first time in their lives.
How can I forget?
One of the things that we're missing here so much that I miss personally is bonding. Because in here, away from, say, the Vipassana setting, Man, it's unusual for guys to go around hugging each other and whatnot, shaking hands and touching.
2 and 3:30, not 10 and 2:30.
We're human beings, these are things that we miss.
And then it's growing. We're growing.
Yeah,
because with this next group, it's going to grow even bigger. The I love you going to be even bigger.
We have it there, so that's something very big. That's something so important.
We have a term here that we use, fake it till you make it. That's a question I have here. Is this something they can fake to get something positive in their file to help them make parole? Or is this something that's truly life-changing? And, it's impossible to gauge after a month, 2 months, or a year. Show me 5 years from now. Show me once you're out that you've really changed your life. At that point, I'll be able to say, yeah, this is awesome.
Been sick for the last 4 days, throwing up blood, and I've been able to get no help.
I had to go tell these gang members that I was part of, hey man, this ain't me no more. You go ahead and go your way, and I'm gonna go my way. And hoping I don't catch no repercussions behind that. This how I know Vipassana work. When they call me a chump, call me a negative word, breathe a little bit, and I was cool. Administration didn't teach me that. Vipassana taught me that.
After experiencing the first group coming through and noticing how faithful the guys are to come to meditation each morning, evidently something's working somewhere. They're more relaxed. They're easier to get along with, and they don't cause as many problems.
To begin with, the daily sittings were great for us. It gave us an outlet to commune with each other. It also encouraged one to continue the sittings on their own. Not everybody used to show up every single time, but there was the opening, there was the room for us to be able to sit. Then unfortunately one day, we were told that we couldn't do them anymore.
After the graduation, people associated with traditional religious programs became threatened. The chaplain services could take the prerogative simply to call the commissioner directly and say, these guys are, practicing Buddhism and they're turning all my inmates into Buddhists, so therefore you need to shut this thing down. So then the commissioner turns around and calls the warden and says, shut it down, shut the program down. You can explain the program till you're blue in the face, but it's not going to change their decision.
Dear Bruce, I understand that this letter may take some time to get to you. Please tell everyone hello for me. 4 block is now the worst cell block in Donaldson. Blessed indeed are we who live among those who hate, hating no one. Amidst those who hate, let us dwell without hatred.
Please let it be known that we are always delighted to hear from any of the Donaldson Dharma warriors. Of course, we are all disappointed you have lost the right to hold your group sittings. I know how much this has meant to you all. I was encouraged and impressed that you did not express any negativity about this situation.
All the Dhamma Brothers are hanging in there for sure. Grady, OB, and I just had a birthday on the 6th of September. I am still sitting morning and night as I have always done. I will make like a door and close now. Please take care and be careful. Be happy, be peaceful, be liberated.
Lately, I have not kept a regular schedule of sitting. We still meet every Wednesday under the auspices of another scheduled class in the group room, and that gives us the opportunity to share our bond with each other. I wonder what would happen if we were caught.
When I first got here, it was like they told me Ed's here. I was like, oh man, where is he at? So it was a kind of big shock to see you. And when I did see you, I was like, hey, man, are you still meditating? That was the first question.
Right.
You still meditating?
Exactly. But before you came back to this camp, I had been going through a lot. You know, not being around the people that know what Vipassana means, right, and know what I done been through. With,
it's like a void.
You know, dealing with myself. For me to leave one Donaldson, where it's a lot of us, to go where it's none, that was a hard transformation for me.
Yeah.
Be able to have to fight with myself and fight within these bounds and allow myself to slip like that.
This too will change. You know, so don't let that, you know, break you down, because you can always get it back. You can always go back and get it back. So it's not to a point to where it's not retrievable. You can go back and get it.
In order to bring Vipassana back at this particular time, there was a change in the administration, there was also a change in the wardens, and a change in the chaplain services.
It's great to be back in Donaldson.
Oh, yeah.
It feels like we're coming home.
Feels like home. We miss you also.
Yeah.
As I walked down the corridor and I saw them lined up, a big smile just came over my face. It was a real homecoming for me. Very emotional, very, just very touching.
Jonathan and I have the dubious distinction of the only guys that ever want to come back into Donaldson. All you guys want to get out, we want to come back in.
All right, you all right?
Knowing that the Vipassana program is secular in nature, I always maintained hope.
How you doing? Good. Good to see you. Good to see you. Thanks for all your letters. All right.
If you're really interested in treatment and you're really committed and you want to do treatment, then you just have to go ahead and do it. You need to go ahead and do treatment.
The case that I'm in here on, the murder that I committed, occurred on January 12th. Vipassana is a way of being able to look. You know, I look a lot at the victim's family. I look a lot at, you know, what did they experience, you know, this time of year, because, you know, they got a loved one, you know, that's not present on account of me. Pain's a fact. It's going to be. Hit me 25 years on it day for day. And the pain of that is with me daily. I can't get around it. I try to shake it. I try to do everything I know to do.
It's true that when you start to practice Vipassana, you can't hide anymore. And some people think, oh, just because I'm doing a 10-day course, that the negativity comes up and it passes away. But really, this is the long course of life. You know, this is a lifelong effort.
Like, I got life without parole. And there's a strong possibility that I may not never get out of the penitentiary. But, and all the time I was in the penitentiary, I was seeking to escape. I was real violent. You know, like my life's in constant turmoil, right? I need this. You know, like, because at a certain length of time, you know, frustration builds up. And this is like a break from everything. This is like freedom. You know, like it's setting me free, you know, so I appreciate y'all coming.
I've seen drastic changes. Rick handles things far more better. I can kind of say we were kind of like on the same page. I act just as manic sometimes as he does, but he's way ahead of me, and I've got to catch up when it comes to handling certain situations. Grady, nowhere near as angry as he used to be.
The guy asked me, he said, you getting a visit today? Well, today's not visiting day. I said, yeah, I'm getting a visit today. I hadn't had a visit in 3 years. Y'all coming back is a visit to me. You know, I'm glad, I'm happy. And don't work me too hard.
You gotta work yourself out.
They had a newscast on, and the guy sitting around the TV said, one day we were listening to it, and they said, Grady, that's your daughter they're talking about. And one of the guys that was getting the Mobile paper, there was an article in there, and sure enough, it was my daughter. And she had been murdered, and that's how I found out. I read it in the paper. My first reaction was, boy, if I could just get my hands on this cat. But that only lasted a few minutes. And it's like, what are you talking about, Grady? I can't feel that way. I don't like anything that he did. It makes me physically ill to think about what my daughter went through. But I gotta still love the guy. He's still a human, just like the rest of us. I don't like what he did. I hope he can't ever do that to nobody else ever again. But he's a human being. And if I believe anything about what I've said that I believe in, then I love him too. It's a choice. Vipassana gave me the right to make my own choice. I can choose how I want to react to this. I don't have to just react. I can't even tell you how much that surprises me that Grady Bankhead can sit here and tell you he actually did that. Because that doesn't sound anything like the Grady Bankhead I have known for 50 years.
When you actually work with human beings, you realize that every person is more than the worst thing they've ever done. I mean, I think if you take, someone who tells a lie, they're not just a liar. If you take something that doesn't belong to you, you're not just a thief. Even if you kill someone, you're not just a killer. These are folks who have just been ignored and are desperate, hungry for someone to help them find a better way to cope.
Now, I think it's just important that you know this, that while I understand that life in this place is sometimes hell, this is a very difficult place to live, but there are people on the outside who have tremendous compassion and love and support for you guys doing the work that you do.
You know how I look at this program? I look at this program as an individual going to lock up, but in a good way. In an environment like this, these 18 guys we got out here now, see, they getting away from that hostile environment for a while. They can think about other things, stress-free. Don't even worry about getting in trouble or nothing like that can get them in trouble.
Donaldson is a crazy place. The past 2 weeks are evidence of that. Somebody got killed on the 1st of the year, and the preceding week before that, there'd been so many stabbings. Thankfully, none of them were fatal. We feel as though, in so many ways, we were let down because we were not allowed to practice freely. We're hopeful that this course here is a good sign, but we still don't know. I think this institution will gain a lot from the course. If there were, say, 100 more people walking around who have the mindsets of my Dhamma brothers out there, it would make a heck of a difference.